guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Gypsy and today we are going to be doing what I've already done in the past a few times. This is our Sculpt study series where we pay closer attention to individual facial sculpts of Barbie dolls, and I'm focusing on the dolls that I actually own so that I can show you actual examples of their faces up close and we can really look at them together in detail. If you like these kinds of videos, drop it in the comment section and let me know. If you have other requests for videos that you guys want to see, make sure that you're telling me about them in the comment section. I do read the comments. I don't always respond right away. Even the older comments, I eventually do get around to watching them. So make sure that you let me know so that I can kind of make a list of stuff that you guys want to see. But yeah, today the face sculpts we're going to be going over are Odile, model of the moment Marisa, Simone, Andra, and bonus, we're going to go over two male facial sculpts. One is the Tango sculpt and the other one is going to be the Barbie Basics AA Kin sculpt. So let's pop over to my dolly station and take a look at our beautiful doll faces. All right, pretty people. First, we're gonna start with the Odile head sculpt, one of the newer sculpts that have come out. Also, right now, currently, my favorite Barbie doll face mold. So first, I just wanna talk about how this sculpt was originally used for the Flight of Fashion Barbie doll, which was designed by Angel Kent. I think the head sculpt is stamped with 2019 on it, like on the back of the doll's head. All Barbies on the back of their head have a little date embedded into the vinyl, and you can see this one says 2019. That's what I mean when I say it's stamped with 2019. The Flight of Fashion doll, which I do not own, was released in 2020. That doll was originally retailing around 120 bucks, and it was a platinum doll that was made to order only for platinum and gold members, right? Over on Barbie.com, you can sign up for a membership there for their Barbie club. So if you had to be a member that was at a specific tier in order to be able to even order one of those dolls, and you can imagine there's probably only like 7 people who actually own this doll and have seen her in real life. Very beautiful. Of course, I fell in love with the pictures when I saw them. But honestly, even if I could have afforded that $120 price tag, I probably wouldn't have ordered that doll anyway because the styling of the doll was not really my taste. I'm not really into all the fantasy and like fairy tale kind of stuff. So I don't think she would have really warranted me wanting to spend that much money on her. She was cheaper than duh, but not for that price. And also, I don't think she came with any kind of articulation in the body. So for me, it was always going to be a no. And I would have had to wait and hope that I could find a cheaper version of that doll's face. But I did fall in love with the face as soon as I saw it. Now, 2 years later, thank you, Barbie gods, the Holiday Barbie was released with the red hair. And she was released for just $40 at the time. That's the doll that we're going to look at next. Her face is gorgeous. She does have the same exact sculpt as the Flight of Fashion Barbie, who had really dark jet black hair, but this one has beautiful red hair. It's like kind of copper kind of color. It looks so much brighter and shinier on camera, but in real life it's a more muted red. It's not so bright. And I love red hair, on real people. One of my best friends is a redhead, and as much as I tell her I love her for her personality, I mean, let's be real, I just love her for her red hair. I'm sorry, Lisa. I'm a mess. Anyways, I'm gonna give you the names of all of my dolls, and the reason why I named them is so that it's easier for you guys to identify them when you guys are trying to ask me questions about the dolls, rather than you being like, hey, what's that doll with the blonde hair and the blue eyes and the red shirt? Because I can't watch the video back when I'm answering comments sometimes, so I don't know who you're talking about. So if you'll say hey, where did you get that doll, Jennifer? Or what's the original doll? Then I'll be able to answer the question faster, So that's why I do that. This particular doll, I call her Talia Rojas, and she's just so cute. I love her side glancing eyes, her facial screening is not too over the top. She doesn't have tons of makeup on, and she's got turquoise eyes, y'all. To me, it's not like a regular shade of blue. They just look so cute with her hair. Very interesting combination of features that they chose for this doll, and I just love how playful she looks with the side glance. We're gonna compare her, of course, to the other faces as well. Now, she does have a couple of beauty marks on her face. She didn't come like this. I added those in just to give her a more unique appearance, but that's about all the customizing I did to her other than restyle her hair, which also was not this straight when I got her out of the box. It was like she had bigger curls in her hair. So in 2023, we also got 3 more versions of this face sculpt released in the Winter Fantasy doll in 2 different skin tones, which again, I do not own these dolls. 2 exclusive for my bones, although they're beautiful. And the Gala Pink Premiere Barbie, who's also really stunning, and also the Lady Luck Barbie. So if you've seen these dolls, what do you think of them? I don't think I've seen a version of this sculpt done that I didn't like. They're just all very unique and beautiful and versatile. Tell us in the comment section if you own one of these dolls as well. Like, what is she like in person? Oh my gosh, because we have to live vicariously through you. Hello. Something interesting about these dolls is that they are often compared to the Steffi face sculpt. And I think that has something to do with some of the key features of the face. Primarily the huge forehead. Look how long and big their foreheads are from the side. And the big puckered lips. I think that has a little bit to do with why people are comparing this sculpt. They say that it reminds them of Steffi a lot. I hear that a lot. But this particular version is the Dreamtopia purple-haired mermaid. And of course I have this other one, which is the Dreamtopia pink-haired mermaid. And she's in a different skin tone, a little bit darker. Both beautiful. Even though they're supposed to be the same face sculpt, I mean, they don't look the same. When they're all made up, they look like they have distinct personalities that are very different. And for this particular version, she's kind of like a bonus because she has the open mouth version of this sculpt. And she's the only one so far that's been released with an open mouth. It's not teeth that's drawn on. They're actually in the groove between the 2 lips that are parted. If you like the open mouth version, then that one's also available. And these 2 are the cheaper versions of the sculpt, of course, because they're not like these high-end collectible ones. The purple one, you can find her in, I've seen her in like Walmart stores and probably in Target. You can find her easily. The pink-haired one was a little bit harder for me to find in a store. I had to order mine online. That doesn't mean that you won't find her in a store. I mean, I'm sure there are probably some stores that carry this one too. So I would say look for both of them when you're out hunting for this sculpt. The last one I own is from the Juan Gabriel tribute doll, and she's been redressed. All of my dolls, for the most part, you guys, are either like redressed, or all in clothes that they didn't come in, or their bodies have been swapped, so they might look like a little different than their stock photos look, because I do hybrid a lot of my dolls, most of my dolls. So just keep that in mind. We're just focusing on their face right now. This is the most recent version of this doll that's been released at the time of recording this. This is my mini gypsy. She's got a very neutral face up. Like, she doesn't have a whole bunch of makeup on. Her lips are like a natural color. Even her hair, the length, style, and the color is very natural looking and like realistic, believable hairstyle that probably just any old random person on the street would have. Even though this doll's face can be used to have a very like unique, fantastical, whimsical kind of a character, she also works well for just a normal everyday person type of a look as well. So versatile. That's part of why I love this mold. We're just going to talk about some key features of this face. So you'll notice that for most of these, you're going to see that the eyes are very large and wide, the way that they usually draw the eyes on. But that's because the space that I guess would be considered like the eye sockets of the head sculpt, there's enough space there for you to get large, big eyes. So you'll definitely see versions of them looking that way, but then you also see with the Juan Gabriel doll that her eyes are not as big as the other 2. We're also going to notice that she has fairly small, puckered kind of lips from the side. They definitely like protrude from the face. Like I mentioned earlier, that wide forehead, it's all there. It's all there. The forehead definitely, I think, is comparable to like a Steffi doll. But I think Steffi's forehead is way bigger, honestly. You'll notice when you look at her straight ahead that she has somewhat like a pointed chin, a small button kind of nose, and more of like a rounded face shape. And she's got pretty angular cheekbones, I think. Like from the side, you can kind of see them a little bit better. But these are some of the features that you want to be looking for when you're identifying the Odile sculpt. Honestly, I think Odile is one of those sculpts that's very easy to identify because there aren't too many other sculpts that resemble this one. It's a very unique face. I always love distinct sculpts so much because it makes it so much easier to figure out if I want to add the doll or not. because then I can like kind of tell myself, do I have a bunch of these dolls already, or do I need to add a couple more of these particular faces? So this makes it easier for me. Right now, these two are my favorite in my collection. The other two, they're cute, of course, but I don't have so much of a connection with them as I do with these two, and I think it's because these two look very realistic, which is something I'm always looking for when I'm adding dolls to my collection, is like dolls that could look like real people, or dolls that remind me of people that I actually know in real life or have seen in real life. With these guys, probably because of the hair and a little bit more over the top makeup, they don't look real to me. They look like cartoon characters. So I don't have so much of a connection with these dolls as I do with the other two. If I had to downsize my collection of Odiles, these two would be the first to go. Honestly, I don't think I would miss them because I don't really have a use for dolls with bright hair colors. I think if I ever do a display, like if I'm feeling just in the mood to be colorful, I'll probably use these for like a pastel color scheme display, because I think they would look nice dressed in those kind of colors. All right, let's move on to the next face in this sculpt study by Odile. Now, I don't know how this one ended up on my list. Most of the sculpts that I was working on adding to the series was supposed to be sculpts I had multiples of, so she should be in with dolls that I have only one of, but for some reason she ended up here, so I guess we're just gonna go over her. All right, so this one is called Marisa, and it's also known as Model of the Moment Marisa. Sometimes people just say the whole thing. You're gonna see it abbreviated MOTM or MOM at times. But basically, Marisa, there's this one, and then there's an open mouth version of her. I only own this one Marisa, and yes, I chose this doll specifically because of the head sculpt, because I did want to add this sculpt to my collection, but they're just so hard to get a hold of because most of them are really pricey. They're released on dolls that are very like high-end or collectible type dolls, and usually not made in high quantities. So this one's name comes from the Model of the Moment Marisa Barbie doll that was released in 2003, and we have, I think there's two versions of that doll. We have the Beach Baby one, and then we have the Pretty Young Thing version. Beach Baby came out first in 2003, and the Pretty Young Thing version came out in 2004. And then later, we saw released the Wicked Witch version, which is also very pretty actually. Cha-Cha from the Grease musical, she came out in 2009. We have the Styled by Iris Apfel doll that was doll number 2, not 1. 1 has a different face mold. Doll number 2, who was released in 2017, which I never got. I was really contemplating getting that one, less for the face sculpt and more for her clothes. But I didn't really like the hairstyle, so I think I just kind of like, I wasn't really that interested. So I missed that one. And then of course this one, who was released in 2021 as part of the Power Pair couple, designed by my love, Carla Nuera. I'm so glad that I got this one. She's the convention doll. This is also one of those rare dolls and it cost me way too much money. I think I spent like $250 on the set together because like I got it from somebody on eBay. So I ended up paying way more for her than I should have, but to me it was worth it because I knew it was going to be so hard for me to find a doll with this face sculpt anytime soon, and I also wanted the other doll that she came with. Let's take a look at the face. Of course there is an open mouth version of this doll, but the mouth is only parted slightly. It's not like a big smile. Other than that open mouth, all the other features of the face is exactly the same. I do hear people sometimes confusing this sculpt with Daria, which is a different Model of the Moment doll that was released in the same series with the original Marisa doll, but they do not have the same sculpt, obviously, and people just get them mixed up sometimes because they look very similar to each other. So the key features to look for with this sculpt is her very distinct nose shape. Here, I'll turn her to the side so you can see what it looks like from this angle. But you see like she's got a nose that the bridge slides away from the face and comes out. And just for a comparison, I want to show you how Odile looks next to her. So when you look at Odile's nose, you can see that it's very tiny compared to hers. She doesn't even have a bridge, like her nose dips inwards. You see that difference? So that's definitely something you want to be looking for the Marisa dolls, and how to recognize this face sculpt very quickly. It's all in the nose with this one. She's all nose, y'all. I love the distinct nose shape that she has. To me, this sculpt would make a great face mold for like an Arab woman. You know, like a Middle Eastern kind of a vibe I get from her. Like I can imagine them doing like a Jasmine doll with this face mold or something like that. And no, she did not come with a nose piercing. I gave her that little nose ring. You can use puffy paint to make piercings on the faces of your dolls if you get like metallic colors. I do that to a lot of my dolls who I don't want to poke holes in their face. Other key features of this doll's face is her wide, thick lip shape. She's got a long face and she has a soft, scowling kind of an expression that conveys a serious disposition. Whenever I see a version of this doll, to me, she just always looks kind of serious. I know sometimes I say that the side glance conveys playfulness in the facial expression of the doll. In this case, it really doesn't. To me, she just looks like she don't want to be bothered. You're talking to her and she's just thinking about something else. What? Are you talking to me? She does not care. That's how she looks, you know? She's not being mean, but she just can't be bothered. But yeah, this is my only version of Marisa, so I cherish this doll to no end. She's got this very unique hairstyle of twists instead of braids coming out of her head. They're rooted in. They're super long, and she's my only doll with hair like this. Some of her braids are unraveling, but I don't manipulate her hair too much, so if they just naturally unravel, I don't think I'm gonna sweat it. They just look like little twists. I think it'd look good either way, although if I on purpose unraveled all of it, her hair would bulk up more. She would look like she had way more volume in her hair than she does. If I wanted it to look more full and thick, I guess I could unravel it, but I'm not gonna do it on purpose. And she also came with these baby hairs that are drawn on here so dramatically, which I love. What do you guys think of this version? I love her skin tone. She's on a new body because the original body she came with was one of those model muse type bodies that didn't have any joints. But I just think she's so beautiful and so unique, and I don't mind that I only have one. If I never add another Marisa to my collection, I won't feel like I missed out on anything because I have this one and she's the perfect version. If I only had to have one, I'm so satisfied that I have this one. So just keep in mind, if you're looking for this doll, she's a very hard to find, rare sculpt. And if you do happen to have one already, you better cherish her. Don't give her away. Hold on to her. Yeah, and also I named her Andra after a girl that I know who has the same name. She doesn't look anything like her, but I just stole her name because it was cute. Next, we're gonna look at a sculpt that is called Simone. And Simone, I don't know why I'm saying it like that. Simone is one of those names that's something you commonly hear on TV show characters or book characters, but you never actually meet a Simone in real life. Do you guys know anybody named Simone? Leave it in the comments if your name is Simone. It's a cool ass name, but I feel like if you name your kid Simone, people are gonna be like, really? Really? My name is Simone? You think you all of that? I don't know why. Simone just has that vibe to it. It's just one of those kind of names. But here we are with our Barbie versions of Simone. I know, you're sitting here yo, why do you have two of the same doll up here? Well, let me explain. These are the first Simones that were released to the public. This head mold is a 2021. This sculpt was first released with the second wave of the Barbie Signature Looks collection. Model number 10, that's what you're looking at. One of the deepest, darkest, chocolatiest skin tones was used for this sculpt, which is amazing. Love. And I've already used their bodies as donors for a bunch of my dolls that have this skin tone that was impossible to rebody previously. So this is the first time we're getting articulated bodies with the skin tone if you're looking for one. Just a little side note. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys how, even though these two have the same sculpt, they look so different. It's not the camera or your eyes playing tricks on you. They really do look slightly different. So I'm going to point out what's different. The sculpt is the same, okay? The shape, the mold of the face is the same. But even though they have the same face up, her eyes are slightly closer together compared to hers. Her lip paint is a little bit shinier. I don't know if you guys can tell. And also the intensity of the screening on the doll's face, the way that the paint looks, hers is a little bit brighter. Does that sound crazy? So I use these guys as twin sisters, and this one is eBay and this one is Anais, and I based their characters on me and my sister's personalities. eBay is the more rambunctious one, kind of active, and she likes to dance, and she's really kind of like a wild child and very rebellious. Anais is the one that's more calm. She likes to read, she likes to do music and be laid back and very girly and chill. I don't know, when I look at them, I can tell the difference between the two, even though they're supposed to be the exact same doll. I did add little moles on their faces on opposite sides so that It's not how the doll comes. But I just wanted to point that out, that even though it's the literal exact same doll, there's like slight differences in the way that they're painted that make them look kind of different. Do you guys do this? When I go to the store and I pick out dolls, I always compare the faces of all the dolls that look like that doll to try to pick out the one whose screening I like the best, because sometimes the eyes are slightly wonky. Like these two, this one's closer together than that one. Tell me they're not, you guys. Tell me they're not. I swear, they really are. Something in the eyes look so different to me. I pay attention to things like that. I don't know. It's like really difficult for me to not see it. I can't unsee it, but is it just me or do you guys do this too? My mom, she was the one that pointed out to me that dolls' faces aren't always painted the same way when I was a kid and we would go like shopping for dolls. So she would do this. She would pick out the dolls from the shelf and have me look at them closely to figure out if sometimes like there would be like a little smudge of paint on the face or something like that, or the lip paint would be slightly like askew, and she would be like, yeah, pick out the best one. So that's what I would do, and I still do that to this day. And then this is the other Simone. This one was released with a later wave of Barbie Looks dolls, and she's model number 24. She's in a completely different skin tone than the other two, so it might be a little bit difficult to recognize, and that's why we do these sculpt studies, so we can learn what to look for in the actual vinyl itself, how the face shape, the bone structure of the face looks, so that we can recognize dolls with different face ups when we see them. This one has bangs, and as you can see, even with or without bangs, this sculpt looks good either way. I don't think, you know, one style suits her over the other. And there's another version that I saw that I don't own that had curly hair. That one didn't look bad either. I wonder if they're gonna release a doll with like a curlier hair texture for this sculpt soon that's not some kind of high-end expensive doll. And that one is the 55th anniversary Christie doll that was released last year. And then we also saw this face sculpt on the Gemstone Fantasy collection, the turquoise doll. And she's got the two-tone hair with the long ponytail that's like twisted up on her head. So they're all very pretty. I noticed that other than this particular version with the Barbie Looks, model number 24, all the other renditions of this face sculpt have darker skin tones. And they both look good in either skin tone. This sculpt, it has very distinct features of like an African bone structure. I'm just very curious to see what the sculpt would look like if they tried to make a version that resembled other ethnicities with the appropriate hair textures and skin tones to go along. Like, what would this face sculpt look like as an Asian girl, or a Middle Eastern girl, or some kind of like Caucasian version of it? I'm just curious. Like, sometimes it don't work depending on the sculpt that you're using, and sometimes you'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't see that, you know. But for the key features to look for in this sculpt, you want to be paying attention to the face shape itself. The forehead to chin ratio is like the head is a little bit more wider than the chin, so it's like comes to like a point towards the chin, but also her chin is kind of rounded off. So it's not really like a pointy chin. It's very round and soft. And she also has high cheekbones, but they're like soft. It's kind of weird because in some ways this doll looks like she wants to have very sharp features, but everything is just slightly rounded and softened up. So it's not as sharp as it looks like it would be, or like it wants to be. And then she does have full puckered lips with no teeth showing, of course, but you can see that there's like a very distinct separation in the lips, the top and the bottom lip. And here, if you look at them, it almost looks like there's a space between the two lips. There actually isn't. So that's interesting the way they did that. It's like a very deep groove there, kind of like they did with Elle from the first wave. Her lips are just so distinct and unique the way that they sculpted it. She does have a nose that dips in at the bridge of the nose and is set wide at the tip. So if you look at her from the side again, you can see that the nose dips inward, unlike Marisa's nose that we looked at earlier that protrudes away from the face. But then the width of the nose kind of flares out towards the bottom. Overall, this doll's head size is fairly small to medium sized head. And that is a factor in looking at doll heads because they don't all have the same kind of like size range. Some of their heads are much bigger than others, and some of them are smaller. So I think when it comes to like more high-end dolls, like the collectible dolls and the ones that are molded to look like actual real people, they tend to make the faces somewhat smaller than like a playline doll would have, you know? So that's something to keep in mind as well as we're looking at these face sculpts. All of my Simones have names, of course. I already told you the names for my twins. This one, her name is Kaori. She looks just like this girl that I know whose name is Kaori. So I decided to name her after her. Before we move on to the next set of faces that we're going to be covering, I just thought that I would mention that I find it very interesting how common it is for certain face sculpts to get confused for one another. As I do research for my sculpt studies, I always come across a face or two that people really confuse for other faces a lot. And that's part of why I decided I wanted to share this information with you guys in the more structured way that I'm doing it now, pointing out different features of the face that you want to be looking for in order to recognize them so that it minimizes the confusion when you're trying to identify face sculpts. And I do the same thing. I will get some face sculpts very confused sometimes because there's certain features of the face that are just so similar between two sculpts. I just wanted to point that out. If you have a hard time telling the difference between certain sculpts and you're just kind of confused about them, or you can't remember how to distinguish between them, or if you're wondering which dolls have certain sculpts that you're interested in, definitely leave those questions in the comments and I'll try to make some follow-up videos for you guys featuring those specific sculpts if I happen to have them in my collection. I have a bunch of different dolls in my collection that I don't always showcase. Just because you guys don't see them on the channel doesn't mean I don't necessarily have those sculpts, but go ahead and still leave them in the comments. If I don't have them now, if I get them in the future, I'll definitely do a follow-up video on them. But I just like to do it with the dolls that I have because it's just easier for me to show you guys close up what you're supposed to be looking for, and I can turn them in different angles so you guys can get a better idea of what the dolls look like in person. Next, I would like to focus on these handsome hunks. Probably one of the most popular face sculpts used for the black male Ken dolls. Also one of the hardest to get a hold of. If you know, you know. He actually doesn't have an official name. Mattel itself refers to him as Barbie Basics Ken, AA head sculpt. I don't know if they're ever going to name him or what, but if you look on their website and the way that some of the designers actually refer to this face sculpt, they usually just call him Basics Ken. Who knows, maybe they won't bother giving him a name until they make his face sculpt a little bit more prevalent than what he is right now. It is what it is. If I was given the opportunity to come up with a name, I would probably just call this guy Texas because he was popularized by the Texas A&M Ken. A lot of people refer to him as Texas A&M Ken, even though the initial one that was used was from the Barbie Basics line. And we all know that line is discontinued from years and years ago, so we'll never see that Ken doll reproduced. And for people who own that doll, you better hold on to him and cherish him because he's irreplaceable pretty much. And if you're a collector trying to get a hold of that doll newly, good luck. I bought 2 of them when I did, and I had no idea that they were going to become like classics or how rare this face mold was at the time. So I just liked his serious expression on his face. He just didn't look like he had any doofy smile on his face, and I'm so used to most of the black Ken dolls having the Steven head sculpt, which like irks me to no end. I can't stand that sculpt. When I saw this one, I just instantly was like, yeah, I need 2 of those. My other Texas A&M Ken is over here, and he's sitting because he's got a boo-boo. Who knew the wheelchair would actually come in handy? He's got a missing foot, so he can't stand. And also, as you can see, this guy, he's looking hella rough. I need to clean him up because he's been stored away for a while. He's one of the dolls that I had experimented with when I was learning to repaint. It's been so many years, and I don't think I sealed the paint on his face because I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep him like this. He needs a touch up badly. Nonetheless, he's on his original body, and so is this guy. And these two, for the life of me, y'all, I cannot find a body donor that has articulation to match these guys. Some people say that you can use the BMR 1959 Ken, but honestly, he's a little bit light. He's like slightly lighter than these guys. I don't know. Maybe out of desperation, I'll try it one of these days and see if it's a huge difference. Yeah, so I just wanted to show you that these two do have the same face sculpt, but obviously because I repainted this one fully, they don't quite look the same. So this guy's name is Benny Schmoove, and this guy is Raymond Pratabi. He is one of my channel mascots that you guys see in my logo on my channel. Okay, this guy here, this is Legend, and he is originally from the Power Pair doll set for those convention dolls I was telling you guys about earlier. Other than the Texas A&M Kens, I didn't have any others with this face sculpt, so I really wanted to add him to my collection just to have another one in a different skin tone. So he was absolutely a must-have. He did not come with any type of articulation on the body. It was a beautiful body, but just so stiff because they were like model muses. So I did end up rebodying him, and I used the Barbie Looks John from one of the earlier waves, the guy with the dreads. Perfect skin tone match. And speaking of skin tones, I also have this version here, who is also a Barbie Looks Ken, but this one is model number 25, who came out in a very recent wave. And they are the same exact skin tone, even though he actually has a broad body type, so they don't have exactly the same dimensions as far as the body. But that's not what we're focusing on right now. We're just gonna look at their faces. I named him Dero after my husband Adonis Dero. Even though they are the same complexion and have almost exactly the same colors on their face, like the way they did the eyebrows look very similar, the lips look very similar. I will say the shape of their eyes are quite different, and Legend has more, like, I feel like his eyes are more Asian looking. I know that sounds kind of weird, but just something about the way his eyes are shaped. To me, he looks like he could be like mixed with like Chinese. I thought that was interesting, that slight difference in the way that their eyes are shaped. It makes them look so different from each other, even though they have almost identical look. Something to note for dolls with this sculpt, for the most part, they do come with some type of textured hair. I haven't really seen any that have molded hair. So for Texas A&M Ken, he has flocking for his hair. The convention doll, he also has flocked hair with a little bit of painted on hair around the edges. Dero, his hair is actually rooted. It's like curly rooted hair all the way around, and he also has painted edges around his head. As for the key features to look for in this sculpt, you want to be looking at the nose. The nose has a very rounded off look at the tip, and also it's a little bit wide at the base. And you also want to take note of the chin. It's a little bit squared off, but also has like a very soft look to it. It's not a really chiseled, sharp look to the jawline. These guys also have very wide lips, and they're pretty full. And you'll notice that this sculpt has a very prominent cheekbone structure. Overall, I think that their heads are fairly small in size. Dero's head looks so big, but that's because he's closer to the camera and he's got a bunch of hair that's making his whole head look a lot bigger than it really is. Of these guys, the cheapest one and the most accessible one that you could get your hands on is going to be Dero here, model number 25 of the Barbie Looks collection. So I highly recommend, if you're looking for this face sculpt, to go ahead and get one of those, because it's probably going to be a while before we see any other Kens with this face mold. I think there are some other Kens besides these ones that I'm showing you that have this face sculpt, but I don't know off the top of my head which ones they are. So I'm pretty grateful that I have the guys that I do have, but I just really wish we could find a made to move body for this skin tone. This skin tone is really like the standard black Ken skin tone that they've been using for years. So even though it might not be this particular head sculpt, there's a bunch of black Kens that were released with this tone all the way back like into the late 90s, you know? This particular Ken was very highly sought after just for his articulated body. People wanted to use him as a donor for the longest. Somebody, please make a made to move Ken with this body. I've been saying this for years. I don't know why they won't do it. So next we're gonna take a look at Tango. This doll's sculpt was named after the 2002 Tango Barbie and Ken set, where both dolls share the same name despite being opposite genders. These guys are seen a lot more often. They're not as rare as the Basics Ken face. Some examples include Simba here, who is the BMR 1959 green-haired Ken, and shout out to my homie Tevin, who actually gave him to me, so he's pretty special. He did come with green flocked hair, but I actually removed all of it and made him bald. I thought I was going to give him different hair, but I just love the way he looked bald, and I don't have any actual bald Ken dolls. So I was like, you know what? He's perfect. I'm just gonna leave him the way that he is. And I did some minor touch-ups to his face as well because he had makeup on when I got him, and I just wanted him to have a more neutralized look. So I got rid of all of the makeup and gave him some facial hair and new eyebrows. So he is customized. And then we also have the Divergent 4 doll, which is my Sebastian over here on this side. Some other examples include the 007 Ken and Barbie set, Tales of the Arabian Nights gift set with the Ken and Barbie dolls together that was released in 2001. A series of Kens named Blaine that were released alongside the Generation Girls series and also California Girls. From the Twilight Saga series, we have the character Emmett. And there's a heap more of guys who have this sculpt. The thing I love about this sculpt too is that, as you can see, these guys are two different skin tones. They're supposed to be looking like they're two different races, but somehow the sculpt works on the both of them. And as you saw with some of the examples I showed you guys, like the Arabian Nights Ken and Blaine, this sculpt is so versatile. They can look like many different ethnicities depending on the skin tones and the hair textures and styling that they give to the doll, along with their face ups. So I always love when I see a sculpt like that where they can pass for many different types of people, and you can use that same sculpt over and over again and make them look so different from each other. So let's talk about the key features to look for in this face. Overall, I would say that this face appears a bit sharper in the features than some of the other male sculpts. The nose, for example, yeah, the shape of the nose just appears to be a little bit sharper, and it stands out immediately when you look at this face compared to the other one, like this. See, definitely Legend here has more of like a rounded nose. Another thing that will stand out about this sculpt is that the upper lip is much thinner than the lower lip, and the lips are set pretty wide across the face. They tend to have a very neutral facial expression, which is something that I'm mentioning simply because the facial expression of the doll is basically baked into the sculpt. And a lot of times you'll see dolls that look like they're either neutral or even kind of serious looking, or somewhat like they're smiling, or kind of whimsy looking faces, depending on what the sculpt was made to look like. The expressions are definitely a part of the way that the sculpts are designed, and depending on how you do the face up, that can eventually change what the sculpt itself looks like. So even if it's a neutral sculpt, you could make the expression look like they're more serious or like they're happier based on how you do the face up. You're generally going to see that the dolls that have the sculpt do usually come with some kind of textured hair, but in the case of BMR 1959 Ken, of course, we saw that his hair was flocked. Let me know in the comments if you've ever seen this sculpt used with molded hairstyles back in the day, like in the 90s when they were using this sculpt heavy. Most Ken dolls had rooted hair anyway, so for the most part I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of that, but I mean, you never know. Finally, we're going to talk about the Andra head sculpt, which is also one of the newer ones. I did previously mention this sculpt in my Barbie Looks collection sculpt study video that I did, which I have the playlist linked below. My playlist includes all of my sculpt studies, including that one, so you might want to go and check out the other videos in the series if you want more details. But I decided to include her in this video as well because when I did the first video showing her, I only had this particular one. Now I have 3, so I wanted to include them in this sculpt study for comparison. So this one here, I call her Daleen, and then we have Electra with the long hair. She's Callista. This one, of course, is the Barbie Looks model number 8. And this is the first doll that was released with this face sculpt when she was a part of wave 2 of the Barbie Looks series. This is the second one that is part of the Barbie Looks series, and she's model number 16 with the curvy body type. And then this is the last one from the Barbie Looks series in wave 3, and she is number 20. Some other dolls you're going to find with this same face sculpt is Angel Kent One of a Kind Gala Glamour Barbie doll. One of a kind meaning it's the literal only one that exists. And if you look at the pictures, you can actually see like the individual brush strokes and her eyebrows and everything, because she's not a mass-produced doll. She just has a very soft look about her face, which is very unique And that doll actually came with a Ken because she's part of a set. So it was her and the Ken doll that came together for a charity auction. And then you'll see the same face in a newer doll called Styled by Maeve Riley. I think her outfit is so cute, but again, like I said, with the face, they did such a good job of the styling of the doll and the face up of the doll. I think this is one of those faces that are also very versatile and you can get many different looks out of this doll. I'm excited to see what that doll might look like in person. She's definitely on my list of dolls to add. In taking a closer look at each of these dolls, let's look for the features that they have in common in the sculpt. First, you want to take note of the lips. For the most part, this doll's lips tend to always look like they're turned down at the corners, very slightly. I think it's more of a neutral expression, but when I look closely at the sculpt, the grooves on the sides of her lips look like they're turned down to me. And she basically always looks like she's got perpetual resting bitch face, which totally works for this sculpt. She also has a very slight, subtle bridge in the nose, so it does dip inward, but it's not as close to the face as with the other doll we looked at, Odile. Overall, compared to some of my other dolls, I think that this sculpt has a much smaller forehead. There's not that much space between the eyebrow ridge and the top of the head where the hairline starts. So if she was to have bangs, they would be kind of short. By comparison, Simone back there, she has a much bigger forehead, so she can get away with having long, full bangs like that. So I just thought that was something interesting about this sculpt. She does have a very angular jaw, even though it is softened up by the rounded chin. So these are things you want to be looking for when you're trying to recognize this sculpt. And I'm not gonna lie, this sculpt, me personally, I get this sculpt confused sometimes with the Lena sculpt that was also released initially with the Barbie Looks series. So I had to study them carefully to be able to tell them apart when I'm looking at dolls that have those two sculpts. I just personally get them confused. I don't know if anybody else does, but I thought I would mention that. Now, so far in the dolls that have been released with this sculpt, including the ones that I don't personally own, we have yet to see these dolls produced in a darker skin tone, at least at the time that I'm recording this. So tell me in the comment section if you've come across any dolls that have this face sculpt that have darker skin tones. I am curious to see what they might look like. I think that they would iterate very nicely as darker skin tones as well. Also, most of the ones that I've seen are blondes, so I am curious to see what they might look like with different hair colors besides some kind of shade of blonde. Like the newer one that I was thinking about getting, it just felt so redundant when I saw that she had blonde hair. She still looks good either way, but I just like to see the versatility in the sculpts being done up different ways. So I just want to find one that has a different hair color. That's part of the reason why I needed to add this one to my collection as well, because her hair is like a red color, but this hair, it's not the same coppery kind of tone that my Odile doll has here. You can see that they're completely different shades of red. I like that a lot because even though I do have a collection of red haired dolls, I think this is the only one I have with this particular shade of red. It's very interesting hair color and also multi-toned. If you look closely, there's like a little bit of blonde snuck in there. It's really, really hard to see on camera, but it's there. It's just very beautiful blend of hair color, so I really like that. I'm curious to know what you guys think about these Barbie Looks dolls, because these are probably the most accessible ones that you can get right now for this face sculpt if you're trying to add her, other than the newer one that's available, but the price for that one is like double this one. And that doll doesn't come with the same body type. We already know that the MTM doll bodies have the most superior joints available at the moment. That doll, she has the, what do you call that? You know, the Barbie extras? She has a body like theirs, which, their bodies are just, They gave her high-heeled feet instead of the flat feet. If I was to add that doll, I know for a fact I'm going to end up rebodying her. Maybe not right away, but she would eventually get rebodied. Yeah, so for double the price and less joints, you'd have to compromise to have that face sculpt in your collection. But she does have really nice clothes. What do you guys think? This one is definitely one I'm probably going to end up adding more to my collection down the line, especially if I can find ones that have different features, like a different hair color and texture than what I have, and also definitely in a different skin tone. That's my take on this face sculpt. Again, this one's called Andra. I think those are all the dolls we were going to go over today in this video. So what did you guys think of all of these wonderful faces that we went over today? Did you learn something new? I did, to be honest. Researching some of these faces, I found out a lot of things about these dolls that I didn't know before, and also discovered a doll that I need to add to my list of dolls that I need to get. Hopefully I won't miss it. What did you guys think overall? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and talk amongst yourselves in the comments as well. I just want to reiterate this. I say this often, but I haven't been on here making doll content in a while, so I just want to say this fresh for the new people that are finding this channel. My channel is meant for adults who collect dolls of all sizes, not just Barbies, because I do collect dolls other than Barbie dolls. It's just a space for us to be able to discuss our interest in the dolls, things we don't like about dolls. It's okay to not like certain things. I know we live in this weird culture where everybody has to like agree with you or they can't be your friend, but I'm not that kind of person, and I think that's strange. I feel like people should be able to express themselves as long as you're not harming anyone. It's okay. It's not offensive because you tell someone your opinion. Here, it's okay for people to tell their opinions. If you don't agree with something I'm saying, tell us about it in the comment section, and if there's something that you want to see improve with some of these dolls and the features that we're getting in them, let's talk about it amongst ourselves. So yeah, feel free to make friends with each other in the comment section. Be kind to each other, please. Remember, they're just plastic people, they're not real. So I hope that everyone's having a great time enjoying their dolls. If you didn't catch my last video, it was about things that you can do to kind of revive your doll collecting journey and kind of breathe some life into it if it's starting to kind of bore you or wear you out. So a lot of people have found that some of my tips over there are helping them to figure out new things that they want to try with their dolls. So I highly recommend that you go and check that video out. It should come up at the end of this video, so you can just click on it. Yeah, it's my previous upload before this one. Thanks so much for staying this long and watching, hanging out with me and my dollies over here today. Again, my name is Gypsy, and I will see you guys in the next video. Toodaloo, and have a dolly day.